Welcome to Mompreneurs, the real deal, where we get raw and real with fellow mompreneurs so that we can all learn and grow for one another and figure out what we're doing, how we're moving forward, and how we can be more successful in all things in life. I'm Jen Gode, one of your hosts, and my amazing co-host is Sarah Breen. Welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Jen. Nice to see everyone. I am Dr. Sarah Breen, and I am so excited to announce our guest today. She is a phenomenal mompreneur. Her name is Lydia Knight. She is the CEO and founder of the She Center, as well as an executive coach and speaker. Welcome to the show, Lydia.
It's so fun to be here. What a great topic to always talk about. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And we have so much to cover that we're just going to dive deep right away. So, my first question for you is this. Tell us about your upbringing. I know that you did grow up in the Mormon religion, and I'm curious to know how that started the shape of a mompreneur.
Yes, absolutely. So I grew up Mormon and like really Mormon. The white side of my family was like pioneers that crossed the plains, like very Mormon. And within the Mormon church, my grandmother is also a cult leader, and I grew up in the cult that she formed. So, multiple layers of being taught how to think and how to be. And it definitely connects with how we show up in our mom identity because it's very prescribed in the Mormon church, also very prescribed in the cult that I grew up in. So, lots of layers there.
You know, it's really interesting to hear that. And, you know, all of us came from some sort of an upbringing, and it's created limiting beliefs and certain ideas that maybe don't necessarily translate to success as an entrepreneur or maybe translate to how we actually want to be as a mom. So, can you kind of share with us and dive a little deeper into how did that shape your ideas about entrepreneurship, and how did you overcome some of those maybe perhaps limiting beliefs so that you could become so successful?
Oh, absolutely. And there were plenty of limiting beliefs. So, one is within the Mormon church, it's very discouraged to work outside the home once you have kids. So, as an entrepreneur, I was always within that, okay, how do I build something when I'm confined to being at home? The other idea that I grew up with was that your time, your money, your resources, your efforts are not your own. They're all for someone else, especially the men in your life. So building a business takes time and it takes focus and investment. And so that was a big limiting belief as well. And growing up in extreme poverty, I started working as an entrepreneur when I was 11 years old. So there was always this back and forth, this dissonance of I literally have to make money to survive and support myself. But what does my religion think of that? What does my family, this cult that I'm part of, think of that? So yeah, many different pieces there, and everyone had to be overcome, and everyone was an incredible adventure to overcome.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm wondering, you said you became an entrepreneur at 11. How did they feel about that? What did you start doing? How did that come about? And what were the reactions that you got from home?
So interestingly enough, it was encouraged because I went to my mom one day and I told her that I was out of toothpaste. And she said, you have to let me know way in advance if you're running out of toothpaste because we don't have money for more. And I realized in that moment as like a 10-year-old that it was so important for me to financially take care of myself and be independent. So I actually had support because there wasn't support from other places and it helped the family if I financially supported myself. So I started making feather pens. I before I had the vocabulary of profit in my mind, I realized you can buy feathers for less than you can sell someone a feather pencil. And so I started doing that. And then I had a traveling nail business where my mom would take me to other girls' sleepovers and I would paint their nails. And I was just trying to think of these ideas of how I could financially support myself. And even with the little money that I made, it changed everything. So there was support. It was out of a survival place, but I started learning the power and the independence of having an idea and making it profitable.
You know, that's really fascinating. You did it at such an early age. And I truly believe entrepreneurs, like, we have a different way of being. Like we really do go after it. There's almost like this risk taking. What happens if I do this, and how can I make this happen? And this kind of this work ethic and this resilience. And I'm really curious, as you moved through that, did you have any things that didn't work and you had to go back to the drawing board? And what did resilience look like for you at that early age? And how did that help shape who you are today?
Yes. So, I mean, I do think that there's a drive that we have as entrepreneurs, but the reason I became an entrepreneur is that nobody's going to hire you at 11 years old. The only thing that you can do to make money is make your own business. So, I started learning those principles early on. And one of my first entrepreneurial lessons was I started making like hemp necklaces as one of these businesses that I went into. And my friend was like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll do it too." And it was my first experience of competition. Like, you can have an idea and then someone else just copies you. And so I quit that business. I'm like, I can only do original things. I'm fumbling through and learning all of these lessons. But the resilience really came from a have to at first. And then as an entrepreneur, there's a certain fire that you get familiar with and an empowerment that becomes a wonderful partner in what you're creating, because there is so much empowerment in I can get the feedback and I can adjust and make this better. And how can I serve my clients better? And all these principles that you learn that there's a lot of joy in. So there was a positive feedback as well, which I'm grateful to have learned early in life.
Yeah, definitely. That's really, really a great story. And I'm curious then, at what age did you become a mom, and were you still at that point working? And, how did that all come about at that point?
Yes, so I was an entrepreneur from the time I was 11 all the way up until maybe a month before having my baby. So I got married around 21 years old, which is a little old in the Mormon church, but it still worked out. And yeah, had a baby. We were living in New York City at the time, and I felt very, very isolated. Being Mormon in New York City, having never, even traveled to the East Coast before we moved there, and I was like, okay, I've got to give up working. I quit my job. I stopped working for the first time in my life to come home and have a baby and to be a mom forever and the perfect Mormon wife. And it was really challenging. It was very isolating. I didn't realize how much connection I had built in my life through being an entrepreneur, because there's always a reason to keep on connecting with people and a justified reason to, go out and spend time and build relationships. And so felt very, very isolating. And I had the idea of like, oh, I could still work. I could just work from home and that would be within the rules. And so that was right after I had my baby is when I, went into the entrepreneurship from home. But there's been a pretty long streak of entrepreneurship my whole life.
Well, you mentioned that and you talk about going to home, but how did you manage relationship building from home? Because, working from home and all of the virtual formats that we have is relatively recent in the entrepreneurial space, last 5 years, 10 years maybe. So how did you have to shift? Like, what did you need to do to shift so you could continue to be successful? Now that you're a new mom, you're working from home and you can't go out and build relationships in the same way that you used to, perhaps. Talk to me a little bit about that and what strategy or how did you overcome those challenges?
Yes, this might be unfamiliar to some of our younger viewers, but I picked up the phone. Telephone is one of those things where you can connect to people anywhere. And the business that I went into is I became a health coach. And so I started coaching people on health principles from home. I was told there's no way I'd be successful because I was younger and a lot of the demographic was older women. So I'm like, okay, older women, like the age I am now. But I started calling my friends' moms. Like I would call everyone I'd ever known in my life, ask them for their mom's contact information so that I can share that I'm a health coach and if you know anyone that I can help. And it blew up. Like the business grew so quickly and it was a joy. And I just remember sitting in my like, the glider rockers you have when you like have little ones, and just being on the phone, calling people over and over and looking up and seeing my little, 1-year-old daughter just smiling at me, sitting on the bed and, just being my little companion. But it was her and I at home with a telephone.
That is so I can see it. I mean, I can see it. That's so cool. And you're such a motivated person, clearly. My question is, was that life supported by your husband and your family?
So it was, and you, as an entrepreneur, you've got to learn how to teach people how to treat you. So I definitely had to show the benefits of what I was doing, and it definitely benefited my husband at the time. I started making more from home than he was making at his New York City job quite quickly, within about 6 months or so. And his dream was always to not work and pursue acting. And he's like, I can live my dream now. And so I fully supported our family financially pretty soon after I started my work from home business. So I did get the support, but because it was benefiting everyone around me, and as an entrepreneur, I learned how to tell people the benefits of support.
It's really fascinating, and you've overcome so many challenges. We do have to take a quick break, but I just want to kind of recap very briefly before we do. Like, you found a solution to every challenge that came up, and I think part of being an entrepreneur is being positive in our mental attitude and finding solutions and being solution focused. So if you're watching this at home, be solution focused to anything that comes up. Find a way to overcome that, and we will be right back after these messages.